Hello all, this is Dr. Damaslak talking to you about reciprocity.com. The E is written with a 3, and in this particular video, I want to talk to you about being a professor versus being a data scientist or a data analysis, and just kind of go into some of the differences and similarities between them in case you are curious. So if you don't know me, I'm a associate professor of innovation strategy and entrepreneurship. And I created this whole reciprocity project to give back as much as I possibly can. There were so many people that helped me out that I want to pay the favor forward and help you out. So both data analysts or data scientists and professors do a tremendous amount of analytical work with data. Even if you are a professor that is focused on qualitative work, you're probably actually doing qualitative stuff like less quantifiable kind of analysis, right? So it would be looking at actually going into interviews and looking at things like that. Professors generally do a lot of data analysis. And so the folks that actually do the qualitative stuff actually do a tremendous amount of data analysis too. You just have to in order to do research within a particular domain. Now, some of us will specialize in kind of a theoretical sort of domain. We might do things like mathematical modeling or simulations or, actually write theory, what is called theory, which is kind of like proposing new ideas and things like that, which is, like theoretical physicists will do things like that. And in my domain, there are a couple people that do that kind of stuff. But, for the most part, most professors are pretty empirical. So meaning that they actually dig deep into data and they look to see what's going on. And they do very similar things to what a lot of data scientists and data analysts do, right? So what are some of the similarities and differences between a data scientist and a professor? So we look generally, even if you're a theorist, even if you are somebody that focuses on qualitative data, most of us will actually look at numbers for a living. The reason why I say that is because you have to review other people's work and take a look at what other people are doing and help them and guide them through thinking about what they're actually looking at, right? So we look at data for a living. We look at numbers. We look at things around us that we can quantify for a living. Now, most of us, so both of us, professors and data scientists, generally have a pretty healthy skepticism of what numbers mean and what they're telling us. We've seen in Florida, for example, there is definitely some skepticism that's going on right now with a COVID crisis from data scientists. There was actually a big scandal that came out, I think it was in March, right? So Rebecca Jones, who is a data scientist that was in charge of the Florida Corona pandemic was fired because she believed she was very skeptical about the data that was being presented, and she wanted to take a little bit more of a deep look into that. And now there's been a sort of scandal that's come out of that. We as professors really are skeptical as well, right? So we see numbers, other people sort of generate different things, and it's our job to take a deep dive and think about what those numbers actually mean or somebody's actually presenting. And it is really difficult, even if the number looks like this is the way it should be. We have to take a deep dive and sort of ask, how do they actually get that data? Where does that actually come from? How is that actually analyzed? What are they doing in order to actually get to the point where they have that particular number? We take a real deep dive in terms of trying to make that make sense of that. And that's why it's actually really hard to get scientific journals published. Now, a lot of our work then, on the other side is gathering and matching data. And so that's really important to us of putting data together and making sense of it. So we are very, very empirical in nature. Most of us are, because we just like to study the world around us, right? So, and even if you're kind of a theorist, what you end up doing is maybe grabbing somebody else's data and analyzing what somebody else is doing and sort of putting that within your particular theory and ideas and stuff, right? So that's a critical thing to think about, is that there is some real similarities between them in terms of data scientists and professors. And a data scientist is a fairly new sort of career field. in terms of how it's evolved in the last few years. It was generally somebody that just analyzed, or a statistician, for example, that analyzed the data. And now it's becoming a whole new field, and that there's all sorts of really interesting things that they have to deal with that, just typical statisticians don't have to deal with, like storage of data, for example, or, actually presenting the data in such a way that actually is easy for the average person to look at, things like that. So what are some of the differences between a professor and a data scientist? Well, data scientists in general, they're going to be working for larger corporations, and they're probably going to be working, maybe it's for the government or a larger corporation, and as a consequence, what they're going to be hired for is looking at large data sets and trying to make sense of them. So COVID's going on right now, and we're staying at home and working from home. So if you hear kind of odd random noises, just don't pay attention to that. My kids are at home with me. So, in terms of, they're going to be looking at large data sets, and professors are probably not going to be looking at nearly as large data sets, although it is moving that way. You're starting to see more papers where people are using much larger data sets to analyze different things. Professors are going to be really concerned about theory and knowledge development behind what the data means. Data scientists are not going to be concerned about that nearly as much. And they might be a little bit, but in general, they're not going to be taking a deep dive in terms of trying to make sense of what it is. That's our basic job, is coming up with new knowledge and trying to make sense of these different things, right? Of how to actually put that in. So that's a clear differentiating kind of feature of being a professor and analyzing large data or massive amounts of data. And by the way, I do that too. I've got a data set that I analyze. It's millions of observations that is, and it's growing every day. So fairly large, not like giant in terms of billions of data points, but pretty large in terms of analyzing it. I have one of my PhD students has billions of data points, and they're analyzing that. Or we're analyzing that together. He's better at data than I am. So these are where we're moving towards, right? So it's really important to think about that. The other thing is data scientists are generally going to be really good at understanding how to clean data, match data sets, sort of make them presentable in the sense that we can actually take a look at that, because that's our main job. That's really what they are all about. And professors are going to be a little bit skittish. Most of us are not nearly as good as somebody that is trained in data science, especially in the last 5 years, especially since like 2015. Anything beyond that, just the science behind it is evolving, and the tools that are there, it is really evolving. A lot of the tools that are available now, it's 2020, weren't available when I was going through and doing my doctoral studies, and which was the 2005 to 2012, and so things have really evolved, and it takes a tremendous amount of investment to get up to speed on some of those things, right? The other thing is the how we actually do. What are we paid on is going to be a little bit different between the two different careers. So professors are paid to publish articles for a living. All this kind of stuff and teaching and all that kind of stuff, it's not nearly as important as publishing and writing articles. And that's just the way it is. And sadly, or it's a positive thing in a lot of different ways, but most people don't realize that. We're paid to do research and to publish articles for a living, but data scientists, they're really about making sense and combining the data. They're hired to do those kind of things, right? Combine and show the data in presentable ways so that other people, lay people, or people just in general can understand what it's all about. So hopefully this kind of helps with making sense of the differences between, a professor and a data scientist or a data analyst. We do all that kind of stuff, but at the same time, our roles are different and they overlap, but they're not necessarily the same thing. So if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. Do subscribe to the YouTube channel. I do appreciate it. Take care and have a wonderful day. Bye.